few visitors, or not necessarily here, but that come on during the day and read what we've had to say or listen.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and potential Toastmasters. Welcome to our show, Wake Up with Toastmasters. I am your District 115 Club Growth Director, Ken Richardson. And with me today is my co-host, Phyllis Tribby, Distinguished Toastmaster and past District Governor. Good morning, Phyllis. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Ken. I'm doing wonderfully. And how are you doing today?
I couldn't be better, quite honestly. Let me make sure we're online and everything's going well over here.
Oh, yes. Check out Facebook. We want people to send us messages.
Yes, we want to let everybody know we're here to get the word out. So I'll be right with you.
We're going to be talking about tips for public speakers. So if you have one that you think is great, even anything at all, please send us a message and we'll read it online.
Absolutely.
It's an interactive show, so please.
Yes, we would love this to be more interactive. We'd love to have comments from our viewers. As Phyllis said, today we're going to be talking about public speaking tips. This is a topic that we often get asked about by non-Toastmasters who are considering joining Toastmasters. They want to know, well, can you give me any tips? How can I become a better speaker? The other topic we're going to ease into as part of that is overcoming your nervousness and overcoming that fear of getting started. I know, I've been speaking as a Toastmaster for 14 years or so. I speak a lot, of course, with Wake Up with Toastmasters and my role as Club Growth Director. I feel like I'm always in preparation mode, getting ready for the next speech. But as a result of that, it does make me more comfortable because I feel like I'm practicing all the time. But I still do get a little nervous, almost every time I get up in front of an audience, I have that moment of butterflies that I've got to overcome. So let me pull up our PowerPoint, of course. I've got some great stuff on this. Hold on a second. Where we are. There we are. On public speaking. So here we go. We'll get started here. Public speaking tips. And our audience, anybody's listening out there, please join us on our Facebook page. We would love to have comments from you. So I found some quotes. I love looking at comments from famous people when it comes to public speaking and what tips they might have for us. And there are a lot out there. I was just amazed, but I found this. This is from Plato, as far back as Plato. And he said, a wise man speaks because he has something to say. And I thought, wow, excuse me, that's a great introduction to our topic today about public speaking tips. Because the first criteria is you really need to have something to say in order to speak about it. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through some of the thoughts and things I've put together for our discussion today. First thing is, I get this a lot. Well, I don't really want to fool with it. I don't like public speaking. I don't want to be a public speaker. Why should I bother in the first place? Well, there are a number of reasons. First of all, to improve your public speaking skills. You may not like it, but almost all of us in one form or another are subjected to public speaking. And being a better public speaker will help you if you're in business or if you are an employer communicating with your employees, or if you're an employee communicating with people who are in management type positions. Even just speaking with each other, learning public speaking skills, improving those skills will help you to be a better communicator. If you are in business, public speaking offers you an opportunity to promote that business. If you don't share your passion about your business, then you're missing out on potential opportunities to reach more people. Public speaking can help you do that. Share your passion. I've mentioned this before. You need to have a reason to get in front of an audience, to speak online, whatever it is. And that reason is often you have something to share. That means you may have a story to tell. And I should remove the word may from that sentence. You do have a story to tell. And you can tell that with passion and share that story. I was at a developing club meeting last night called the Transformers Toastmasters. This is a group of folks started with, I think, 3 or 4 ladies who are working to provide a club for previously incarcerated people who are getting out of jail or prison, and their families. It's kind of like a support group, but one of the things they've identified as a need is for people who are returning to civilian life to learn how to conduct themselves in an interview, to be prepared for job interviews and that kind of thing. And it was just really inspiring because we had a speaker who told her story about what belonging to Toastmasters has meant to her. So it was really, really great. You could see the passion. Her story was engaging, and it just really was something that I appreciated so much, being a long-term Toastmaster. And that's what I tell people. I am always learning something, and whether it's attending a meeting, listening to another person tell their story, listening to a very good evaluator, I always learn something, and it is always worth the bother, if you will. Anything I left out here, Phyllis?
I believe that each and every one of us has been in business, has been in a committee or a little group meeting, even if it's just 5 or 6 people or less. But if you don't have the skills for public speaking, then you don't put forth your opinion and your ideas. So you're shortchanging your owner of all the ideas that you have because you've not developed some skills to put those ideas and opinions forth.
Absolutely. It's such, you gain such confidence in
Mhm.
Toastmasters working on these public speaking and leadership skills. Now, I want to talk about how do we go about preparing a speech. And if you've looked at the Toastmasters website, or if you've Googled how do I prepare a speech, you've probably seen a dozen different ways. And that goes back to the old saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat. But I want to focus on 4 areas. I'll briefly summarize them here, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail on each one. First, you got to organize your speech. When you've got a topic that's worth, or a story that's worth telling, it needs to be told well. And to do that, the first thing you're going to have to do is organize your speech. Then you got to practice and rehearse. I know when I was competing in district, division, whatever level it might be, I practiced constantly. I had a routine there for a while where I would take the dog for a walk in the mornings, and the first thing I would do is go over my speech in my head, and then I would say it out loud. And if my dog responded well, then I knew I was on the right path. Become familiar with the environment. We'll see a little bit more about this. But if you're preparing to give a speech, it's always a good idea to not only know where it is and how to get there, but to visit before you actually have to give your speech, before your time. And then using visual aids properly. And this is an art and a science and a skill that you can learn in Toastmasters. And it can either enhance your presentation or detract from your presentation. So using visual aids properly is something we'll talk about. So these are the 4 categories we're going to discuss this morning. And I did get from, we do have Jennifer Smith on board. Let's see. She wants to make sure that at one point we talk about a speechcraft. So that's a topic for us in a future show. Maybe Thursday, we'll talk about speechcraft. Okay, let's look at organizing your speech. And conceptually, it's pretty simple. You're going to have an opening, you're going to have a body, and then you're going to have a closing. For your opening, you want to really grab your audience. And there are a number of different ways that you can do that. You can bring them in by asking a question. You can sort of startle them with a dramatic statement. There are a number of ways that help you get that opening that grabs your audiences and then tells them what it is you're really going to talk about. So tell them what you're going to talk about, grab their attention in the opening. Any tips or tricks you'd like to share on this topic, Phyllis?
I always feel like a great title is something that can really pep up your audience, make them alive to listen to what you're going to say. So a catchy title. As I say, last week, I gave us a speech on why be all in. And it's like, well, what's he talking about? What's this going to be about? So a great title is always good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I gave a speech at, Vegas Stars last Sunday. And my title was, I Need Help.
Yeah.
So something like that really hopefully grabs your audience and something they can relate to. Everybody needs help at one time or another. And mine actually was a humorous presentation. It was a humorous speech about shopping for a car. But I started out trying to get attention by saying, I need help. So you have that dramatic speech. Your title there that you talked about, Guy's presentation, why should you be all in? Those kinds of things. You can almost, like I said, ask a question. But the opening in the first few sentences should grab your audience, give them some idea of where are you going with this speech. Then the body, of course, is the meat, if you will. If you think about the sandwich method that we talk a lot about in evaluation, you can apply that in some ways to organizing your speech. You have the opening, you have the body, and then you have the closing. The body of the speech is where you make your case. You present your data, you have the meat of your discussion, the message that you want to give is really firmed up. You may introduce it in the opening. In fact, I think that's a good idea to talk about. Today, for example, we are going to discuss great ways to shop for a car or something like that, along those lines. And in the body, you're going to give the details of whatever your speech is about. The meat of your discussion, if you will, the meat of your sandwich is in the middle in the body. Any thoughts on that, Phyllis?
Tell your story.
That's right. Tell your story. Very, very much so. Telling the story is integral to having a good speech because people like to hear your story. They're interested. People don't think they're interesting, but I can't think of anyone that I've met who really was totally uninteresting. People have life stories that they can tell, experiences that are intrinsically interesting. They just don't realize, well, why would anybody want to listen? But the body is where you tell that story. And then your closing, go ahead.
Make it personal.
Yes, make it personal. It's about me. And I don't mean that in a bragging way, but in a way that conveys your story, your experiences, whatever it might be, to your audience. And then your closing is a summary and a wrap up of that. And you can circle back to your opening. You know, if you were talking about, in this speech I gave about different ways to buy a car, and hopefully it was funny. I'll have to ask the, the people who were listening. But circling back to where you started coming up with a call to action is always a great way to close your speech. I would encourage you to do XYZ, whatever it might be. Try giving a speech. If you're talking about, like today, we're talking about tips. Try our tips. If you are struggling with putting together your speech, this is recorded. It'll be on our Facebook page. Go back and review it and look at the things that we have talked about and do it. People say, well, how do I get started? My answer is, the Nike logo, just do it. Get started. Talk to your mentor. You should have a mentor in your club or your vice president of education, whomever it might be, if you are in need of help. Now, this is the one I think where some people, they sort of get worn down. They practice and rehearse. I can't emphasize enough how important it is, particularly if you are a little bit nervous, as all of us pretty much are when we're giving a speech. Nothing builds your confidence more than practicing the speech you're going to give. Write it out. When I'm doing a new speech, I like to write it. I write it in Word. That way I can tinker with it and adjust it and see how it flows. Say it out loud, fine tune it, adjust it. So write it out first, then summarize it to yourself. Or on a 3x5 card, that's another great way. Just hit the bullet points, because the last thing, you don't want to be reading your speech. And of course, all of us have been there early on, where we felt like we needed to read that speech. And many times we don't. We just need the summary, because we know the speech. If we've practiced, if we wrote it and we've practiced, we know the speech. But it's that nervousness that makes us think, oh, I'm going to forget something. Summarize it. Once you've written it out, then take some 3x5 cards and hit the bullet points and summarize it and go over it again. Practice in front of a mirror. This, I guess, may not seem as important with an online speech, but definitely if you're doing an in-person speech, practice in front of a mirror. Look at your eye contact, for example. What about your gestures? Gestures should enhance your presentation and should be appropriate to where you are in your speech. They shouldn't just be wildly random, although I sometimes do that. We have to practice in front of a mirror to get accustomed to that. You can record yourself. Just take your phone and record yourself and then watch it back. And that will help you to look at where are the areas where I could come in a little stronger, or I need to change this. And finally, practice in front of someone, your spouse, a significant other, a friend, whoever it might be, and solicit their feedback. What did you think? What can I do to improve this? What did you like? What did you not like? Have any tips here when it comes to practicing, Phyllis, that you'd like to share with the audience?
Practice in front of a mirror, I think, is important, because the fact is that sometimes when I'm doing a humorous speech, I'm smiling on the inside, but maybe I'm supposed to be a tyrant on the outside, and that my facial features, because I'm happy, doesn't reflect my words. So yeah, be sure that your facial expressions match what you're saying. I got a comment about that in one of my meetings. He said, I thought you were going for angry, but your face didn't really look that angry. So practice in front of a mirror, I think, is one of the great things. And then this is part of it, but be sure of your opening, be sure of your closing. You may change around the body, but those things should be steady. You should always have those clear in your mind. What is your opening? What is your closing? And you work a little bit with the body, sometimes even during the speech, if you don't feel that you're reaching your audience.
I know exactly what you mean, because it's constant for me. Even particularly, one of the things that this reflects in this practice that we're talking about. On Zoom, I have trouble looking at that camera. I tend to, and I always, when my evaluator always says, well, you need to look more at the camera rather than at, I can tell you're looking at the faces in the sidebar or the faces across the screen. And that's true. I tend to do that. It's really hard for me, if after all this time, as much time as I spend on Zoom, is to remember to just look at the camera. So practice, practice, practice. Great tips. Another pointer that we want to talk about, or category, area, whatever you want to call it, for today's discussion, is to become somewhat familiar with the environment. Now, this isn't always possible, but if you can, if you're going to give a speech, visit the location where you're going to give that speech. Take in the space. Make sure that you try to become somewhat comfortable. I know that's hard to do, but it's better if you can visit wherever it is you're going to be speaking before you're introduced to come up on the stage, because you'll have an opportunity to sort of take in that space. Note the speaking area. If there's a raised platform, you need to know where the end of that platform is. Nothing would be worse than you're up there giving a great speech, you got everybody's attention, you step off the platform and do a face plant in the middle of the room. So note the speaking area as part of your evaluation or visit to the space where you're going to be speaking. Check out the sound system, if there is one. How does it work? Is it a lavalier that connects around your head? Is it a freestanding microphone? Has it all been set up? Is there a technician that can help? Do you even need a sound system? If it's a small group in a small room, it may be something you can forego. And then wear comfortable clothes. We all like to dress up and make sure we look good, but if you're not comfortable, something, a tie or something that's too tight or something like that can really distract from your presentation, at least from your side of it, if you're uncomfortable. Now, you've got to be consistent with what is the audience standard in this group I'm speaking to. What's the standard? Is it t-shirts and shorts? Probably not. Or is it something casual or really formal? Shirt and tie, three-piece suit, whatever it might be. Anything else you would suggest, Phyllis, when we talk about becoming familiar with the environment?
Yeah, the speaking area, I think, is very important. Like you say, if there's a stage area, knowing how big it was, but we were at the contestant briefing at a contest, and we found that the stage was made up of grid work and had little holes in it. And a couple of our women were wearing spiky heels. So we had to have that covered before we could have a contest.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was very easy to walk across the stage and get your heel caught in the grid work.
Did you think about going barefoot?
But there's little bit that happen in your life that you wouldn't believe that a stage could have grid work. I mean, really, it's a solid piece, but not always.
Very good. That's a great tip. And that's another reason to check out the space. And then use visual aids properly. We talked a little bit about this, the availability of visual aids is so extensive. You've got diagrams, graphs, charts, these maybe things that are on a flip chart or something like that you're showing your audience. Be judicious in their use and make sure they enhance your presentation rather than detract from your presentation. What about maps? Maps can be really tricky because can they see them in the back of the room? Are they really going to be something that people are squinting to look at and they're trying to see, well, where is he or she talking about? Be real careful. PowerPoint slides. We had a whole show on how to doom your presentation with really poorly constructed slides. And as you know, I use PowerPoint a lot, so I'm constantly trying to make sure that the slides enhance the presentation. And the reason I like PowerPoint, particularly in our show, people can go back to the recording of today's show. They can follow the audio and watch the slides and have the concepts, I hope, easier to remember because they see them visually and they hear them. Lists of items, another potential visual aid, handouts. Handouts can be a really good thing to help drive your message home in a particular audience, but you need to be careful. I suggest that you leave them on a table and people pick them up on their way out. If you give them out in advance or you try to have someone pass them out while you're speaking, people are going to be reading your handouts, not listening to what you say. So use those judiciously. Photographs or sketches, those are other things. You have to think about any of these visual aids. What kind of presentation am I giving, and is it going to be visible to people in the back of the room? Most speaking areas will likely have, a projector or a large television for PowerPoint slides. But if you're presenting diagrams, graphs, charts, etc., photographs, it may be very, very difficult for people in the back of the room. So work through that before you finalize your presentation. And then, of course, any physical objects and props, probably in certain environments are terrific. In others, you might want to rethink that strategy. Any comments on visual aids, Phyllis?
I have seen speakers use like a large chart where they write on it during their speech. And I would recommend that not be used if it's a large room, as when I saw it. The room was too large for the chart that he had to write on, plus the fact that he wrote on it himself, so his back was to us, and we had that disconnect because he's writing and we're waiting. So he should, get someone to work with him and write on the chart so he can always be talking to the audience. So that's what I've seen didn't work.
Exactly. Very, very good point. Gestures and body language, you want to make sure that you have that eye contact and that facial expression, as you indicated earlier, that they match, what you're talking about. You were giving a speech where you should have been looking angry and you were smiling. That's a disconnect that it's hard for your audience to process. We talked about the eye contact issue, something I struggle with online. In person, I'm okay, but online, I have trouble remembering to look at that. Control your mannerisms. If you have mannerisms that you're not really aware of, those can be really distracting. That's another reason why practicing in front of a mirror can help you so much to improve your speech. Learn how to control those mannerisms. Put your verbs into action. If you're talking about action in your speech, you may be able to act it out on the stage. So it adds more power to what you're saying. Now, I'm not talking about, full scale, let's go to the theater kind of action, but emphasizing your action, the verbs in your presentation in an action motion, walking across the stage, emphasizing, leaning forward, verbs that call for action to the extent possible you can duplicate as part of your presentation. Avoid insincere gestures. I've seen speakers, and maybe I've been guilty of this myself, where I want to use gestures to enhance my talk, but they're artificial, and it shows that they're insincere and artificial, and that I'm trying too hard, maybe in that sense. Move around the stage. Don't become fixated on one spot, like you're frozen in spot. Look at the audience to your left, walk to your left, walk to your right, move around. Now, in terms of calming your nerves, we're running a little bit behind. but we'll finish this up real quick. Just a few tips to calm your nerves. And I found this quote from Mark Twain that I think sums up everything that I feel as a speaker, even though I've been doing it for years. There are two types of speakers, those that are nervous and those that lie about it, those that are liars. And as I mentioned, yes, I always get a little nervous. So overcoming that fear or that nervousness, ask yourself, what are you afraid of? The audience is not going to bite you. What are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of failing? Well, in Toastmasters, you are working in a supportive environment, and that support will translate when you're outside of Toastmasters. Focus on the audience. It's not really about you, it's about the audience. So if you focus on the audience, and I'm not talking about, don't imagine that they're all naked. That never works. That's a cliche. That just never works. That's not going to work. But do focus on the audience. You're there to give them information, to meet their needs, not to satisfy your own ego. Everyone in the room wants you to succeed. Remember that. Everyone in the room wants you to succeed. They want you to give a good speech because they are ready to listen. They are ready to learn. That's why they're there. And then finally, practice, practice, practice. Practice will help you overcome your fear. Any other tips you can think of, Phyllis, that you'd like to share?
Breathe, keep breathing, breathe. I had someone tell me that see your speech in your mind, and wherever there's a period, you breathe so that you're not speaking too fast. So concentrate on your breathing. Yeah,
and you can do some breathing exercise before your speech. Or if you're really nervous that morning, do some exercise. Take a brisk walk or something. Go to the gym. Get prepared in that way, because exercise can help actually calm you down. So there are a myriad of ways that we can prepare our speech and that we can overcome those little moments of nervousness or fear. Well, I hope that today's show has given you some tips about public speaking, how to organize your speech and get ready for your speech, and how to overcome some of that nervousness and fear. Absolutely. As we wrap up, anything final you'd like to say to our audience, Phyllis, about our topic today, or anything else?
No, that you can do it. I've done it, and I was a corner sitter, someone that never spoke. And now I've spoken to 3,500 people. If I can do it, everyone can do it. Give it a try.
And that's why I love hearing personal stories, is talking about someone who really had a horrible fear of public speaking, who's now very reasonably comfortable with it, or completely comfortable with it. A few announcements before we go. I want to thank everybody for attending today. If you'd like to be a guest on Wake Up with Toastmasters, please send me an email, d115cgd@gmail.com. Or if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, do the same. Send me an email. Coming up this month on February 12th, which is not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday, we will have our, is it this Saturday? No, it is this Saturday. The 12th is this Saturday. I'm getting behind myself a bit. We'll have educational night. So we have a series of classes. Those classes are listed in the most recent newsletter. If you can't find your copy of the newsletter, you can go to our website, and there is a page there that has all the current and past newsletters for the district. Wake Up with Toastmasters is on Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. on Monday and Friday. Program Quality Director Jean Williams is the host with Jean Dunford, her co-host. And then on Wednesdays, we have our Public Relations Manager, Jennifer Smith, and of course on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the lovely Phyllis Trivy and myself. I want to thank everyone for watching today. We'll be back on Thursday. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.